Good morning, guys. I want everyone to notice that I have dressed up for you this morning. Somebody wrote to me a day or two ago and suggested that I talk about how to help the poor, the needy, those that are in desperate situations in the Philippines. And I thought that was a really good, really excellent, actually, idea for a topic because when you visit the Philippines or live there, one thing that you're going to be struck by is the desperate poverty that some people live in. And it's one of those things that can be really overwhelming. And I think most of the time, for me as a Christian, or just even if you're not a very spiritual person, you may decide that you want to contribute at least some of your time, some of your resources to helping other people make their lives better. And so that's what I thought I would talk about for a few minutes today. Now, the first thing I'll say here is that it doesn't always have to be about money. The thumbnail that you saw in this video is one back from a few years ago when Ondoy hit Manila. And if you're not familiar with that one, that was a typhoon that just really was devastating. I mean, there were parts of the city just underwater. And so the the response from the rest of the world was really inspiring, I guess you could say. Now, personally, I didn't really have a lot of money to give. I don't remember if I gave money or not because that was a tough year for me financially. But one thing that I was able to do was join some of my friends and go over to World Vision Philippines. That's where that picture was taken, and just help them move some of their boxes and supplies around so they could get to the people that needed them. So volunteering is one way that you can do that. Around that same time, I was working with the local Baptist convention a few days later, and we packed up like care packages, I guess you could call them. We had the missionary agency that I had been involved with released a lot of money very quickly for local missionaries to distribute food, and so I was packing up. We used care packages, coffee, had coffee in it, a little bit of rice and other things like that, and we would carry that to different parts of the city and help distribute them to. I was not involved with directly giving them to the local people. What I was involved with was helping get them to distribution centers where they could get to the local folks. So volunteering is one way to do that, even if you don't have maybe a lot of money. But let me just kind of back up here a little bit and give you just some ideas for how you may help, because there's giving to beggars and that kind of thing, and you can do that if you want to. You have to, as I've mentioned in another video, you have to use some maybe some discretion or wisdom in that and decide exactly under what circumstances you want to give. But how can you get involved with something a little bit more substantial? Well, one thing you can do is if you're involved with the church, you can, even here in the States, if that church is part of a larger denomination or a larger group, then you can kind of ask them what charities or what organizations they recommend. So it could be that when you give a little bit to that charity, that organization, or when you come to the Philippines, you get involved with them more directly and you donate some of your time, as I've mentioned before. So that's one way to do that. And a lot of times, especially now with our ability to network so much, even a church that is completely independent and not affiliated, a lot of times there's still going to be networking with other with international agencies of different types. And when it comes to getting involved with a charity or with any type of organization, especially, well, the bigger ones or the smaller ones, there are a couple of things that I would recommend that you look into. First is the issue of, shall we say, accountability and transparency. In other words, let me get a sip of caffeine here. you want to think about this organization that I'm thinking about getting involved with a little bit. Are they transparent? Are they accountable for how they spend their money? Same thing goes with the ministry. And I'm not trying to be rude here, but don't just assume because a ministry has some kind of Christian name on it that they actually do what they say they're going to do. For me personally, if I'm going to get involved with any kind of ministry or charity, either one, whether it's secular, or religious, I want to know that they're pretty upfront with their funds. I want to know that they share with everyone how much of their money goes to administration, how much of their money goes to fundraising. Sometimes I may look and try to see how much the CEO of that organization makes. If they're paying their CEO $1 million a year, I kind of think, do I really want to support that organization? So those are just a few thoughts, and I'll share with you a couple of websites. Maybe I will put them, type them in this video, or at least put them into the description below. But if you're wanting to know about accountability, there are a couple of good websites. There's ministrywatch.com. That's an excellent resource for Christian ministries if you want to check them out, and you can see the rating, you can see a lot of information there. And another very similar thing you can look at, very similar website. Apologies, I'm looking at my notes here. There's one called charitynavigator.org, charitynavigator.org. And they probably include Christian charities in that too, but even just so-called secular charities or unaffiliated with any religion charities. That's a website you can look at, charitynavigator.org. And on both of these websites, you should see a rating of how transparent these organizations are and how well they use their money. So that's one way to kind of at least get some idea, or those are a few ideas of deciding who you may want to get involved with. And again, this doesn't mean you have to be involved all the time, but just donating some of your time to the needy and the poor. There's another thing I would encourage you to consider if you're thinking about getting involved with helping the poor and needy, is the big picture, the long term view. In other words, there are certain cases in which ministries and organizations get involved in what they think is helping, and then it turns out that that organization did not really think things through. Let me give you a couple of examples of this. I have heard of I remember one situation, and I don't remember which country this was. And this organization had established an orphanage, and it was all fine and good. Kids were coming there, they were sleeping there, they were getting fed, they were getting education. So the organization was doing what they said they were going to do. But what they eventually found out, and I think visitors in particular found this out, was that it turned out that the orphans in the orphanage were not really orphans. What had happened is local families who were very poor and destitute saw this orphanage and saw that the kids there had food and were getting educated, and would say, "Will you please take my child?" And so you had kind of a bizarre situation in which you had an orphanage, but the children staying there actually had families. And the family they allowed the parents to come visit them. I don't know how much, but you get the idea. Sometimes you wonder, what if that organization had instead tried to figure out a way to help those children while staying with their families. Another example that I can give you, and again, apologies, I don't remember exactly where this was, but there was one country that was developing a pretty decent textile industry, textile and clothing industry. And somehow, I don't know if a natural disaster hit the country, or I don't know exactly what went into this decision, but America or some other countries started sending just vast quantities of used clothing to this country. Now, as you can imagine, what happened is that eventually shut that country's clothing industry down. Because why would somebody pay for new clothes when you've got all these masses of cheap American clothes coming in, and clothes that were intended to be donated would end up in the equivalent of local thrift stores. So that's just something to think about if you're going to get involved with some kind of ministry, charity, is try to sit back and think, okay, this organization's intentions are good. The money's going to where the money seems to be going where they say it's going to go. But what is the long-term plan for this organization? What is the impact that it's going to really have? And I don't want to sound negative about charities. That's not what I'm saying at all. And I don't want you to think that I am cynical or uh, overly suspicious of charities. I'm not. But what I am telling you is that if you're going to get involved with the ministry or charity, just try to think about some of these issues that I'm talking to you about. So a couple more things quickly, and I'm going to try to speed this up so the video doesn't get too long. A couple of other things that you can do, and I have done this before myself, is once you get to the Philippines, you'll find that people will naturally begin to ask you, I want to help. How can I help? Let's say after Undoy, I had people that I barely knew that were saying, my boss wants to send a donation from our company to the Philippines. Can you tell me where to send it to? So this is why if you network and you do your own homework and find people that you can trust, you can be really helpful in that situation. Because people are probably going to ask you, where should I send my money? How can I help? So go ahead and, if you move to the Philippines, do your homework on some of these things. Last but definitely not least, if you're going to get involved with some type of charity or ministry, especially for the long term, like with what I was telling you about Undoy, that was not really a long term thing for me. I was just helping out with an emergency type situation. But if you're going to get involved with the ministry long term, I would encourage you to, especially if you're a Christian, just to pray and find out where it is that your passion and your gifting is. And what I mean by that is, I believe that God has created all of us with unique gifts and abilities and a unique purpose. And even with that comes your unique passion. So, for example, if your passion is to help street children, then that means that that's probably something that uh, you've been gifted with, and you should pursue that. But if your passion is not for helping street children, you can still do a few things to, donate money or help other people help street children. But if your passion is not for that, and then you try to do that week in and week out just out of some sense of guilt, it's probably eventually just going to wear you down. So your passion may not be for street children. It may be for helping the elderly. It may be for Habitat for Humanity, helping people build houses. That's kind of indirectly related. I think you see what I'm saying. If you really want to get involved long term, which I think would be awesome, be sure that it's something that you are passionate about, not just guilty about. So, anyway, you guys are welcome to leave comments and questions. I really hope that what I've shared with you this morning has helped you think this through. And again, if you're going to move to the Philippines, I would really encourage you to at some level get involved with trying to help other people, trying to better their lives. It doesn't have to be something you do all the time. It really just depends on where your heart is. But every little bit helps. And remember, one final thing. I know this is turning into a real long video, but you don't have to try to change the Philippines. If you can just impact someone's life or a few people's lives, that's huge. That does make a difference. So anyway, let me know what you think, and if you have questions or comments, please leave them below.